Yes, everybody, we are back for some more One Piece. Wahoo! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with the Thriller Bark arc of One Piece. And as you all know, I am slowly going along through my journey of the various One Piece arcs, and I am giving reviews on every single one of them with you guys. You guys really seem to enjoy this series. I'm having a great time, but not this video. I got home from DreamCon yesterday, so I am still a bit tired, a little bit fatigued. It was just a very eventful weekend. So if I seem a little low energy, that's why. But overall, I definitely will say off rep that this is my least favorite arc going through One Piece. Probably even more so than like Syrup Village. No, actually, never mind, because Syrup Village almost made me drop One Piece entirely. I did not care about that at all. Not nearly as bad as Davy Back, though. Davy Back was pretty ass, too. But in our last One Piece coverage, we had gone over the Water 7 and Enies Lobby story, and I absolutely love Enies Lobby. To me, that is probably where One Piece is personally peaking for me, just with how everything was coming about. I still really enjoy Skypiea. I think the Skypiea still is a bit overhated, but because the conclusion of Skypiea was absolutely amazing. But Enies Lobby, just how the Straw Hats are kind of leveling up and everything like that, and the story with Robin, I really enjoyed that story. So it's kind of hard for me to have it topped here. And Thriller Bark, I got told was kind of a no-think arc, but there's just not a whole lot that I enjoyed about the arc. Now, I will tell you that this probably has one of the strongest conclusions so far as like the last like 15 to like last maybe like 10 chapters or so. Fire, non-stop, back to back. But we'll get there, chat, we'll get there. Before we get too deep into this video, please make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. And actually, if we can get this video to 700 likes, yes, ladies and gentlemen, 700. If we get 700 likes, I may drop the Sabaody Archipelago arc next week. maybe Marineford next month. We'll see. I don't know. Also, if you'd like to be a larger part of the community, please make sure you join the Discord down in the links below. And without further ado, let's jump on into the Thriller Bark arc of One Piece. So when we start off the Thriller Bark arc of One Piece, we have the Straw Hats coming into the Florian Triangle, and they encounter this large ghost ship haunted by this one skeleton named Brook. Now, I had seen Brook in a bunch of material with One Piece again, but I didn't know who exactly he was. I thought he was just some random musician that the Straw Hats had in their crew, so I knew nothing about his backstory or anything. And you kind of get the vibe that something tragic happened to him, but I like Brook a lot. I like his personality. He's very goofy, but there is a lot of heart with Brook, and especially when he has his own personal fight with the samurai later on in the arc. I love what Oda did, especially a throwback to a very early character in One Piece. But before we talk about that, I gotta get his introduction out of the way. I think Brook being kind of this like little silly pervert is kind of funny. I think that Brook teeters that line between funny and like straight up harassment. Unlike some people at the middle of this arc, man, Sanji fans, I don't know what I don't know what Oda had against Sanji in this arc. They made Sanji look like a fucking, like he embarrassed Master Roshi. I'm not gonna go that far, because Master Roshi should have fell into Bulma's doo-doo water, but Sanji looked like a straight creep this arc. Not to mention the fact that Absalom is one of the worst characters I've seen so far. He's just really creepy, and just all he wants to do is marry Nami. But one thing that actually really stuck out to me with Brook's introduction is that Luffy was so amused with Brook that he just straight up asked Brook, "Do you want to join my crew?" And Brook says yes. Now, I was a bit apprehensive of this because we just had Frankie join the crew in Water 7. So I'm like, bro, we're having another crewmate join this quick? It's a little fast, isn't it? But then I kind of realized that Usopp and Chopper, I mean, they were fairly close as well. So I mean, it makes sense. Same thing with Sanji, same thing with Nami. So it's within the realm of possibility. So it didn't really occur to me why it kind of stuck out as odd to me until I thought about it later on. But we have the fact that Brook cannot go out into the open daylight because he has had his shadow stolen. And so this eventually leads the Straw Hats to actually go and find out where Brook's shadow is, and they encounter Thriller Bark. And there is a lot, listen, I will tell you, I like the set piece of Thriller Bark, but some of the horror goofy elements did kind of run their course, especially when I was watching the anime, there were so many times of Nami, Chopper, and Usopp just running away, screaming, and it just got kind of bothersome. And I can definitely tell it was starting to bother her as well. I understand that it's playing on the whole Scooby-Doo, like running away from Ghost Gag and all that kind of stuff, but it did just get kind of tedious. I can only take so many jokes of Nami, Chopper, and Usopp seeing a zombie and freaking out and running through a hall just to run to another zombie and all that. It just it ran its course. I think it overstayed its welcome way too long, personally. But eventually, we have Nami, Chopper, and Usopp getting introduced to Dr. Hogback, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that Dr. Hogback had something to do with the zombies and was up to no good. So when we have the reveal that it was actually him and Gecko Moria working together, I was confused where the shock was supposed to come from with that. I mean, I've told you that from day one. But there were a couple funny gags as we go through Thriller Bark. We have probably the funniest gag in One Piece so far with Luffy pushing down the zombie back into the ground, him thinking it was an injured old man. And we have the one zombie who for some reason likes to break plates because that's what she just likes to do, or she had something happen with plates in her lifetime. I read this about 2 weeks ago. You don't have to forgive me if I don't remember certain things, but that was pretty funny. But eventually Nami, Chopper, and Usopp come to find out that Gecko Moria is working with Dr. Hogback in stealing all of the shadows of the people that come there. But for what purpose, they don't know. And eventually, Sanji, Luffy, and Zoro all have their shadows stolen. Now, eventually, something interesting that happens is that some of these puppets end up acting like Zoro and Sanji. And originally, when I was going through the arc, I had thought that that was them and they got transferred into these things. But it wasn't until we understand what their shadows do and how it's kind of like a second soul. Kind of like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in part 5, where you have like your soul behind your head, that really weird concept that Araki introduced for some reason. That was weird. That was very weird to me. And then so eventually Nami ends up getting almost kidnapped by Absalom in the bath. And One Piece before this, as far as I know, didn't really have that much fan service, but this kind of felt abhorrent as far as the amount of horniness that was coming onto my screen. Again, it didn't really like turn me off to it entirely, but like obviously I know who the demographic of this is for, but then you just have Absalom just being a straight up rapist, and I don't really care for it. He doesn't actually commit the act, but he's just very sexually aggressive, and I don't personally care for it. Again, this is kind of dated, and you don't really see a lot of stuff like this anymore without having certain traumas linked to it, and authors trying to handle the topic delicately. But again, I'm not a huge fan of Absalom, and I'm gonna make this very clear throughout this entire review. But eventually, you have the Straw Hats facing off against their own matchups, with the exception of Robin and Frankie. You have Usopp versus Perona, you have Zoro versus Ryuma, Sanji versus Absalom, Chopper and Robin versus Hogback. So actually, regardless of Frankie, and he was actually helping the others go trick on the shadows again, as well as Brook versus Ryuma. Now, Brook versus Ryuma, I was interested to see why Brook was so afraid of his afro getting touched, and he kept saying anything but my afro, anything but my afro, and I was thinking, well, why? What? This is a very inconsequential thing. I love the design of Brook, but it was very interesting that his design had directly to do with his character motivation. And when we actually get the reveal of why his afro is so poignant, I was jumping up and down. I texted my editor. I was like, hey, dude, no way, Laboon! The fact that Laboon, the whale that kept hurting itself, that has a scar permanently on his nose because it kept ramming into the mountain, because I wanted to see its friends again and let them know they were there. It was actually that same crew from 50 years ago. It was Brook's crew that he met. That was a fantastic throwback. That was amazing. And so the fact that Brook, he thinks that the only defining feature that he has that would let Laboon know that is actually him and not somebody else is his big afro, and he doesn't want it to get touched because he wants to see this whale again. That was that was definitely a highlight arc for me, as well as Brook's overall backstory with Laboon as well. That entire thing was very sad, and I have been told I need to actually watch the anime version of that rather than reading it. But reading through it was very interesting. Actually, I read the later fourth of Thriller Bark on stream. Actually, I went way longer than I wanted to. I went about 2.5 hours. But the last parts of Thriller Bark, I was having a really good time, as you guys can see on screen. So we have Usopp versus Perona, and Perona has these ghosts that whenever they pass through somebody, they are negative, and so they're very pessimistic, and they are, just sad, and they're just depressed whenever they pass through. So I was very curious to see how Usopp was gonna tackle this fight, because obviously, as we know, Usopp is the weakest Straw Hat member, and I'm not gonna lie, I burst out laughing when when Perona's ghost didn't affect him because he's already the most pessimistic person there is, and nobody's good at thinking negatively than him. That was funny. That was actually very funny. It's actually a W for Usopp. Actually, we see that in all of Usopp's fights, maybe besides Alabasta, actually, using his brain is his biggest advantage because he doesn't have any powers, and so he needs to figure out different ways to actually get a W. So he actually ends up tricking Perona with these fake roaches and making her like pass out with this like 10-ton hammer that he has, quote unquote. I'm surprised he didn't use any Usopp voodoo. Some Usopp voodoo would have gone crazy here. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I did like this fight, I will say. Zoro versus Ryuma. It was cool. It was alright. I didn't dislike it really. It didn't really feel like Zoro had too much competition. Again, we run into this thing with Zoro when he just fights somebody and he just wins, not because he figured something out with their swordplay or anything cunning. He just kind of does things, which is cool. And I like the fact that he got his blade, and we have this little bit of respect that Zoro does gain for this Swordmaster Ryuma from Wano. Now, Wano, or Wano, let me know in the comments below. I forget how it's actually pronounced. So, Wano, I know that it's an arc in One Piece, and Kaido actually is mentioned and had previously fought Gecko Moria. And so when I saw that Kaido was mentioned, I'm like, oh! I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, I've seen clips of him. But the fact that Gecko Moria, who is just kind of a loser, in my opinion, and I think is arguably up there with one of the worst One Piece villains, fought Kaido is kind of odd to me because he just didn't seem all that strong. I don't know, he seemed more kind of hacks, more hacks heavy than actual strength to me, but moving on to Gecko Moria, what do you want me to say? There's nothing interesting about this character. I like his design. I think he has a very cool design, but everything else, he's just not interesting. He's evil. He has a funny laugh. There's no qualities about him, right? Like there's nothing to me that really screams anything memorable to me. He's just evil and very generic to me. I have a feeling that he was kind of meant to be that way. I'm not saying you have to have a super sad backstory or anything like that, but like somebody that's like just like straight up evil, like Crocodile. I love Crocodile as a villain. I love his design. I love his laugh. I love how cunning he is and the ambition that he has. I love Crocodile. I love seeing him. Enel, I love the amount of ego that he had, right? I love all the ego and this god complex that he has and his focus on wanting to take over the earth and spread his own gospel. I loved that. Arlong Park was decent. I didn't mind Arlong Park entirely. Is it just Arlong or is it Arlong Park? I don't remember. It's just Arlong. It's just Arlong. It's been a while. Listen, it's been like 6 months. But then Gecko Moria transplants Luffy's shadow into this giant zombie named Oars, and admittedly, it was pretty humorous seeing this giant try to use all of Luffy's abilities. And the first thing it asked for was meat. That was pretty humorous. Actually having Usopp wake up Sanji, Luffy, and Zoro by saying, "There's a beautiful woman with a bunch of meat and carrying swords running around everywhere." Like that was pretty funny. I like that moment as well. Obviously, this is a very humor-heavy arc coming off of the massive emotional weight of Annie's Lobby and me, literally crying my eyes out over a fictional ship. So I understand what the goal is, but I feel like there could have been more of a balance. You know what I mean? Because the best stuff of this arc is none of the humor. It's Brook, as well as the stuff with Laboon as well. So then we have Sanji versus Absalom. Again, I don't know what Oda was thinking. You guys got to understand also that Japan has a very totally different way of viewing certain topics. So things that we would view as like sexual harassment, they kind of don't view it as necessarily the same all the time. That's why a lot of it's played out for gags and things like that, like the whole peeping Tom thing. Obviously, it's still bad, and they still look down upon it. But it's played out for gags more over there than it is here. Probably because they have such a heavy male population as opposed to women. It's probably the reason why cancel culture is not really a thing over there. I mean, look at the fucking Rurouni Kenshin author. Bro, that man had so much CP on his computer, they thought that he was a distributor himself. That was insane. And you realize how many, like, authors show up to his stuff and so, like, talk positively about him? Now, granted, I think some of it's contractual, and I don't think that some of them actually like him. But still, I don't know. Absalom just bothers me, and I don't really think he's that funny. But having Sanji say that Absalom ruined his dream shame because if he could turn invisible, he would love to just peep on women too. That just seemed kind of out of character for Sanji to me. I don't really think that Sanji would do something like that because I feel like it'd be detrimental, and if the girls ever found out, they feel like that he would be, you know, harassing them. I feel like it's very out of character for Sanji because up until this point, yeah, he was very flirtatious and he was, you know, kind of a simp, but he would never say or do anything that actually harmed them. So that's why this fight actually really bothers me. I'm like, what? And then we have Chopper and Robin versus Hogback. Now, I will tell you that I actually was really rooting for Chopper because obviously Chopper looked up to Dr. Hogback. He said he's one of the most revered doctors in the world, and we have the reveal that, oh, Dr. Hogback actually didn't really like any of his patients. He just kind of saw his drag, yada yada. But the fact that I feel like Oda was trying to say something, but he didn't necessarily have a chance to say anything poignant. He didn't get a chance to actually get to the message. We have, you know, the one actress who died, and Chopper is like, no, like this isn't being alive. Like this is something else. Like this, you can't do this to living people. Like you can't, you know, not allowing them to rest. It's unnatural. Chopper didn't really say anything that like made me think, wow, like Oda's spitting here. Like I feel like Oda didn't get a chance to actually like cook. You know what I mean? I tell you what though, I was cheering up and down when Chopper was about to hit him with that suplex, but unfortunately, Oars was wrecking the island, and we have some really cool teamwork with the Straw Hats, and we have this really cool spread where the Straw Hats are like, you know, Luffy, they think it's Luffy, you know, or they know it's Luffy Shadow, but hey, don't underestimate your own crew when you have that spread. Dude, Frankie building the staircase to get to Oars had me rolling. I watched it in an anime. That was hilarious. Just the Fortnite playing. Just Frankie over there, just playing Fortnite. That was pretty cool. Probably the biggest letdown in this arc was Zombie Luffy. Now again, we have that thing where Luffy gets lost and then he has to come back and fight the big bad. I'm not the biggest fan of that because again, Dragon Ball has that problem a whole lot. I've talked about that plenty of times, but it happens again in this arc. Luffy is gone for a while from the main crew because he ends up running into Gecko Moria, and then he ends up, you know, getting kicked off and ends up running into all the people that have had their shadows stolen by Gecko Moria, and they have Luffy absorb 100 shadows, and Luffy becomes Nightmare Luffy. Now, you are told that he has all these abilities and all these really cool things at his disposal, and you know, he has a sword, and Luffy cuts up this tree. It's like, okay, he has swordsmanship. What else can he do? I don't know. He's just stronger and he has a sword. That's it. I was expecting Nightmare Luffy to have some crazy hacks to his abilities, some other devil fruit powers that he can tap into, but no, he just has super strength and swordplay. That's it. This is so disappointing. I thought there was going to be way more than this. This was, I don't know what happened here. I'm assuming Oda got rushed by editorial or something, but this is a flop. This is just not good, straight up. I do not like this. I do not like Nightmare Luffy at all. I thought that it was like Gear 4 or whatever, because I've seen some designs of Gear 4 with like the heavy like eyes and stuff like that, but I got told that it was completely unrelated. But yeah, I don't. But later on, the Straw Hats actually end up defeating Gecko Moria after he absorbs all the shadows. Predictably so, we all knew he was going to absorb all these shadows and get all big and kaiju-esque. But they actually end up defeating Gecko Moria. Luffy goes pretty crazy with Gear 3 as well. And so after the defeat of Gecko Moria, a little bit before Oars started going crazy, everything like that, Kuma arrived. And Kuma is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and I saw him, I was wilding out. I'm like, what are you doing here? Kuma actually injected so much life into this arc, just with his sheer threat and presence. The fact that he's holding a Bible, I still don't know what that's about. I'm very curious to see what that's about, and he's got that aura, right? And he has orders to kill everyone on the island to cover up Gecko Moria's defeat, because the government can't let it known that one of the 7 warlords was defeated. It's why they immediately tried to get another warlord whenever Crocodile was defeated. Now, Crocodile being defeated, they're kind of like, we'll put a bounty out, whatever. But a second warlord being defeated, they're like, oh, hold on. This age of pirates, they wild, like Chad. We gotta nick that in the butt real quick. And then Kuma actually ends up showing up at the end of Gecko Moria being defeated, and he fights Zoro for a bit, and we see that he has, you know, the kitten paws, and Zoro actually ends up getting his shit rocked by Kuma, and Kuma originally was gonna kill Luffy, take his head to the government, and be like, here you go. But Zoro actually, and I love me some Zoro development, because the thing is with Zoro, he shows his emotions through his actions. He's actions over words, and I really appreciate that with Zoro. And we see that Zoro actually offers up his own life for Luffy. Sanji tries to do the same thing, and Zoro ends up, knocking him down, saying, no, this is me. I don't want you getting hurt as well. Obviously, we know they're constantly butting heads, but they're crew, they're family, and he doesn't want Sanji getting hurt as well. And Kuma says, okay, got it. You would like to put your life on the line instead of his. Okay, I will give you a taste of his pain just so you can see if it's fair or not. And Kuma takes Luffy's pain and he gives Zoro just a touch. So when he says pain, I think that he means like all the trauma and everything like that that Luffy has had in his life up until that point. But I know it was also physical damage that he acquired with his battle with Gecko Moria, and it hurts even more because Zoro's not made of rubber. And so Zoro's just like, just like tweaking, you know what I mean? Just, I've seen that gif before, but I didn't know the context. And so Zoro actually, is like on like death's door by the time this is all said and done, and he says, hey, can we do this somewhere private? So Zoro doesn't want the other Straw Hats to see any of this, right? Everybody is all unconscious for the most part, except Sanji, who wakes up later, and literally Kuma takes all of it, and it's this gigantic bubble, and Zoro puts both hands on it. He breathes, and he puts both hands on it, and he takes it. We don't see all the pain that he took, but Sanji wakes up, and he notices Zoro's gone. I think it's interesting to see that Sanji was the first one to notice that Zoro was gone. Nobody else did. Sanji did, because obviously, again, they're family. They're like brothers. They see each other every day. They're as comedic as their like arguments are, they still care for each other. And so Sanji rushes over and he sees Zoro standing up, arms crossed, and he asks him, what's all this blood? What happened over here? And Zoro says, "Nanimo nagatta." Oh! Chat, I was wilding out. He cold, man. He cold. Talk to him, Zoro. Yeah, man. Yeah. I love this moment for Zoro, man. The fact that Zoro went out of his way to not take any credit. He wanted it's integrity, right? It's those things that you see in your elementary school hallways and middle school hallways. It's like this. It's like someone like jumping off a cliff or something like that. It's like the big black square. It's like integrity, doing the right thing when no one's around. That's what I like to see. Zoro speaking with his actions over his words. We have seen time and time again that Zoro will put his life on the line for the crew all the time. He will do whatever Luffy asks of him. He'll also keep Luffy in check, like he did in Water 7 when Usopp was leaving the crew. He was like, hey, he's like, no, you're the captain. You cannot beg and grovel. That'll make you weak. And if you do that, I will leave this crew too. I like that Zoro, we see how deep his relationship is. But man, I absolutely love this moment for Zoro, man. Oh my goodness. And this is probably the closest Zoro comes to dying ever, besides like Mihawk. But I feel like this is infinitely worse because like his eyes were like bloodshot and everything. Like he was like, oh! So fantastic moment for Zoro, man. And then we come to Brook's backstory, where we come to learn that Brook actually was a pirate, and he actually used to leave an old defense force for his country later on. I thought that Brook was from Wano originally because of the shadow, but no, the actual Ryuma, the samurai, was from Wano, not Brook. I was like, oh, Brook's from Wano? What the hell? No, but finding out like just like how joyous they made their experiences with Laboon, and this tiny little whale just like kept following them everywhere, got lost, couldn't find its mother. I don't do well with animal stuff. As you guys know by this point, whenever it comes to like animals and things like that, like I don't do well at all. I get very emotional very fast. So when we have Laboon there and they're like, hey, we're going to dangerous waters, like Laboon cannot come here, we have to send him off, and they struggle with it, and they try to boo him off, and they try to ignore him, and he just keeps following them anyway. They actually end up coming to the lighthouse that we know, and they're like, okay, they're like, Laboon, we'll see you in like I think it was 3 or 5 years. Like, all right, Laboon, we'll see you in 3 and 5 years. Like, stay safe, we'll see you there. And they love, Laboon loved all the music that they would play, and Laboon actually did have a favorite song. And before the crew dies, and they actually play Laboon's favorite song and have it recorded on a dial. And Brook's whole motivation for joining the crew is he wants to sail with them and eventually get back to Laboon so he can actually play it, and Laboon will actually feel complete, right? That was a very touching read to me. And it wasn't just Brook, it was that entire crew. I mean, the captain of the crew was sick, and like some of his last words were like, please make sure Laboon is okay. Please make sure you guys see him. So that was a very emotional read. I love Brook's backstory. And that is honestly the end of Thriller Bark. There's not really that much to break down and discuss with this arc. It's kind of a no-think arc. Definitely my least favorite in One Piece. It just didn't really hit for me. Gotta be completely honest. I love Brook. I love the Laboon backstory. I love the moment with Zoro. I love how intimidating, how much fear you get from Kuma being there as opposed to like Gecko Moria. I'm like Gecko Moria, like. Like there's actually some mystery and intrigue with Kuma. I'm like, why are you holding a Bible and why are you asking people what their favorite places are? I'm just very curious. I'm very curious to see what ends up happening. But yeah, that is my review of Thriller Bark in One Piece. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Am I tweaking? Am I bugging? Should this be my favorite arc in One Piece? Should it be my least favorite? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, it's been one day for you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Please make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Y'all make sure you take care of yourselves, guys, and have a damn good one. Peace.